Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Piggyman. I did the interview with him, and now we're going to go over some games of his. I was going to spend some time figuring out what are some really nice games to show, let's figure out a way to really show off Piggy's skill. But then I started feeling lazy. So maybe we'll come back to that and have a video where I dive deep at some point into Piggy's prior games. But I got lazy, and I remembered, what did I do with turds? What I did with turds was he had a current event he was doing well with, and I just showed some games from that. And so I'm going to do a similar thing with Champions League because he mentioned to me that he thought his matchup versus Akiyama was really interesting. So we're going to look at the games from his match against Akiyama in the quarterfinals of Yevon's Champions League tournament. Very strong match. I believe it was the quarterfinals, not the wildcard match. Yeah, it was definitely the quarterfinals because Piggy won his group, so he didn't play the wildcard match. Turns out Piggy wins a lot. So that said, here's the hands. The stips are level 9 and 10. Your hand must, the first letters of each card must spell out Yevon. So both players picked Yuna as their Y. 2998, I don't remember what that is, like Uramberos or something. 4878 is X-Death. 7874 is something with a V. 9694 is Vossler. 6698 is Onion Knight. 1898 is Odin. And both have Nanaki as their fifth card. So both spell out Yevon. If you've watched videos on my channel before, you may recognize Piggy's hand because I played against Piggy on this rule set and we ended up tying our game and Piggy used the same hand. So quickly on Akiyama's hand, it looks maybe a little redundant for corner 1, but generally just picking kind of balance power in each direction. As I recall, it was difficult with the rule set to feel consistently strong going up. You'll notice Piggy's hand also, if you had to pick a weak direction, you would definitely identify up as the one it's easiest to run out of power. And so I think instead of looking at these hands and thinking, wow, you guys didn't realize you don't have any ups, we should instead think this is a difficult set to create balanced hands on. All right. So we're going to be looking from Piggy's perspective. Akiyama started in 9. Now, first thing I like to do is check what are their recaptures. All their cards can recapture from 8. Those can have an A, 8, or 7 to the left. All of those Piggy can combo, right? We need exactly this to combo an A. This can combo a 7 or an 8. This can combo an 8. This can combo an 8. This can combo an 8. It's really easy to combo 8s. Gotta hold on to this to combo 7s. But one instinct is like, can we just take it? Now, my first instinct was to do it this way, but I don't want to walk into combos back. If I do this way, then I give up my combo on 7s, so maybe they can take back this way. And if I do it this way, I've given up my ability to combo 10s. I don't have 5. So maybe there's not a good way to do this. So that would just be like my first kind of instinct in the position is, can I just take it and force the action in a favorable way? But I'm not sure I can. What about Akiyama's captures back from 6? That is a 2 and a 6 facing up. Weirdly, we can hit that 2. That 2 is comboable with 1898. And that 6 we don't really touch. So okay, probably not going to get anywhere forcing the action. In that case, we could say there's a potential up weakness. One move that could potentially appeal is here, because it is difficult for Akiyama to capture it. He has no captures in 6, and both his captures in 2 are potentially comboed. Also, it directs the game up, and I do think, despite Piggy's hand not being great going up, Akiyama's hand is weaker going up. And if your card is the card that's high up, it's less likely you'll be the one who needs to recapture it, right? So, especially when it's difficult to take like this. So 1898 and 3 seems plausible. Let's see what happened. Piggy went for a more creative way to force the game to be up. He went 9694 here, noting that 1898 is potentially safe recapturing in 3, but not necessarily in 1. So if I'm Akiyama, This looks logical and strong. Now, maybe Akiyama still runs out of up power. For instance, if Piggy retakes with Nanaki or X-Death, should I have a preference between these two cards? I'm not sure. Let's try Nanaki. X-Death feels like it might have a little more sweeping power on the bottom row. So let's go Nanaki, not X-Death. How does this kind of position look? I'm not sure. Let's have the computer tell me. It's a tie. All right. So, okay, that looks a little scary to me, but I guess is probably manageable. Akiyama went 6, 6, 9, 8, and 3. All right. That does the same thing of having a 9 down, but probably... I was thinking keep up power, but the 6 is so redundant in the hand that the like side-to-side power of 2, 9, 9, 8 and the fact that it's so important in lines where Yuna ends somewhere like here. Alright, this looks like probably the better version. The solver is now telling me Piggy only has 2 moves that tie. I suspect they're the 2 cards that can go in 1, right? Is that right? Yeah, it is right. So one of the 7's down to 1. Piggy finds this. He goes 6, 9, 7, 7, and 1. Akiyama goes 9, 6, 4A, and 4. So we are heading directly to it. I didn't calculate out this position, but presumably Piggy did. And he goes 4A, 7, 8, and 5. Here we can see why it's useful that Akiyama held on to 2, 9, 9, 8, right? Because after a move like this, suddenly Yuna is not winning here, it's losing here. And this is just tying, right? But we can see that the 2998 is a more effective bottom row sweeper than the 6698 would have been. So I think Akiyama there did a nice job holding on to the right card. Akiyama does it the other way. I guess this works fine too. And yeah, comfortable tie. So they tie game 1 of the matchup. This was Piggy's rule set. I think the one thing I guess I want to say on Piggy's style is a bunch of times I expect him to play a corner move or a direct move, and he plays a far side move. And in my game against Piggy, I had a different hand, but I started somewhere up high, and he played this card here. So clearly, he when he picks a card that is a vertical horizontal, something that's strongest numbers are in opposite directions, in this case a vertical, he really notices that he can pair it with other cards in potentially 2 or 8, and often looks to play those moves, and seems to get decent positions out of it. Here, I think he was on the back foot, but second turn can be difficult. Against me, I think it was pretty balanced the whole way. I don't know if it's something where he looks for that kind of move more in hand-built games, because I know with hands he tends to have a few ideas for things he wants to do. And he's talked about how, he's an incredibly good player, but the thing he's probably weakest at relative to players of similar strength is calculation. And building hands and thinking about how the hands work. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Maybe I'll mute for a sec. Miracle of miracles, I actually did sneeze, and it didn't enter that horrible state where you don't in fact sneeze. But I know Piggy likes to have a kind of repertoire of ideas with his hand that he's ready to go to. And that makes it, much like in most positions, kind of like if someone goes here and you capture, like there's kind of a, I should recapture, this is the main move, but maybe I'll also consider going here as a secondary move. And if I need a third option, now it's not the case that it's possible here, but maybe I'd go here and set up combos in both squares to try to combo back, right? There's this sort of set of ideas that we know for this formation. And I think Piggy often develops a sort of nice set of ideas for each hand. And I made a video fairly recently about a flint hand that I think was a good video, go check it out. But I tried to follow sort of a little of how I think Piggy thinks about hands, where he has these set of ideas ready to be at least considered. And so in that video, I was showing a center build hand, and I was saying in, a position like this, it has a corner setup move, it has a make the game up down move, and there's always the possibility that you might want to capture. And so there's sort of three key ideas to consider when you get this standard formation. And I think while that was, obviously a different hand, it's something that I think Piggy is very good at considering, and it leads him, if he sees a starter like this and he doesn't come up with something that immediately interacts with it in a way he likes, I think he often ends up with, here's the hand, an idea I built into the hand. I think it basically works here, and he runs with it. And here, Akiyama managed to put a little pressure on it, but Piggy's not in too much danger here. He has a couple ways to tie. One's in 5. This move apparently also ties. So, never in too much danger here. Game 2 was played on Akiyama's rule set. Now, I have many problems with Akiyama's rule set. It was clearly made to be just the most disastrous rule set imaginable. And yeah, it included Elemental, which means I cannot show the game because my Triple Triad player cannot do Elemental. And had very weird stips and was, I'm not saying this to be insulting. I'm saying, he intentionally made the weirdest rule set he could come up with. That's fine. And he did a very good job of making a weird rule set. And sadly, that means I can't show that game. So they tied that game too, which sent the match to the tiebreak rule set, which was a random rule set. So we're now going to be moving to a random game. Akiyama will have first turn, and we'll see what happens. So looking at the hands, the 6663 and 7774 is a weird combination. It's one of those things where you can imagine either card going here and the other card being able to recapture from the other two sides in quite an odd way. Any obvious directional weaknesses? Piggy's highest number left is a 6. So I think a starter like here, or here, or here is very possible. I should make sure I have the hands right. I don't always, but that looks right. So starters in 4, I think, are pretty common ideas here. Piggy also only has a 6 going down. So there's the question, could you start in one of these corners? Or does Piggy have a big setup here? And I think the answer here is there are a bunch of ways that Pigs can set up. And not only is he setting up to have coverage of both sides, he often has a high number outfacing that's hard for Akiyama to deal with. For instance, if this square got blocked, sure, that's safe, but Piggy has this combo, and Akiyama doesn't really have good stuff to put here. Anything he puts here is quite vulnerable, and he's left kind of lacking in left power. So I could see a potential thing scaring him off. Akiyama ends up starting in 3, which is not what I would have expected. I would have expected something on the left side or lower side. And how do we meet this with Piggy's hand? Well, we have pretty comfortable ways to capture it, right? Like a 5 down, not there, but a 5 down, a couple different ways is not getting comboed. A 6 down could get comboed, but we have multiple 5s. It doesn't seem like that's ever going to get covered. We have a million ways to take it from 2. Fundamentally, we're not worried about setting up against their corner. So I think what we'd want to do is build something that's difficult potentially for Akiyama to deal with. And so if we look at Akiyama's hand for strengths and weaknesses, we see an 8 up, a 7 to the right, a 7 down, an 8 to the left. That's pretty balanced directionally, but often it falls off quick, right? It's an 8 to the left, but then a 6, right? So if we have 7s, say we have 2 cards with 7s to the right, and actually we can cover the 6, so maybe something like here? Because this is well covered, and this is well covered. This is, however, not covered. So maybe not there. I think that's a kind of move we'd want to be looking for. Another thing that comes to mind is something like here. That sort of sets up Akiyama's card well, but it's unlikely to ever also be good here. Maybe it's pretty easy to get it to be good there. I don't know. Let's look and see what he does. Oh, he does go in 7. So if there's a capture from 4, now I think there must be a setup in 2, giving Piggy 1 and 5. I didn't check for this. Maybe something like this? Yeah, that could be very strong. Maybe better is this one, because that sets up the same card for both squares. Is that the card I just played? If so, yeah, that is the card I just played. Maybe something like that looks strong. Okay. Akiyama does go in 4, and Piggy does hit him in 2. So nicely spotted, that because you'll notice, like, in my looking around for moves, I saw this idea, but I dismissed it because there was a capture and I didn't see a happy way to respond. I didn't see 1, I didn't see 8. So I thought, you know, once I forced myself to look, I thought there must be something in 2, but it's the kind of move that's quite easy to dismiss. But if you see it has these virtues of it really is challenging to their hand unless they can do this one move. If you check that one move deeper, suddenly you can really have a lot of stuff working nicely. Now, I feel like I'm very poorly spoken today. Apologies. Now, this is a tricky looking position. The only way Akiyama can play safely in 1 is with this card. In this position, there's the plus here and the plus here. So I assume this is okay. In fact, it's better than okay, isn't it? That's winning. So Piggy cannot combo in 5 here against these exact 2 remaining cards. Interesting. Alright, so we do have to be careful there. So this is not as easy as it looks. Now, could we do it with the other card? This way we don't have 2 5s down, because the problem in the other line was I'm left with these 5s facing down that both cards have 5, so both cards are comboed and both cards overpower 3, so it's going to take 2. If we do it this way, does that work better? Maybe not. I think that loses. I mean, I think this wins for Akiyama. So actually, this is A4, 7-4, and 1 is more dangerous than it looks. It's not what was played in the game. Let's find a tie against it. It's tough because that means it's hard for us to attack any of their cards. I think it probably can't be anything in 6, because I think anything is 6 is met here and we just lose. So we need to be able to react to the threat of 7, 6, 1, 6, and 5, which means we need 4 left open. So now and I don't think we can go 5 immediately. I think something like this doesn't work either. Yeah, that just looks like game over. So I think we need to go 8 or 9. Well, I'm gonna have it tell me. Alright, it is 8 or 9. I just didn't want to spend a while calculating. So apparently this ties, which is hard to find, or more directly, this ties, which would not be the first card I'd have looked at. So I think this could have been a nice way for Akiyama to pressure. But maybe he found a different good way to pressure. He played here. He left everything open. He has the combo in 5, but he doesn't have the same card for 5 and 1. So if I'm Piggy here, I'm thinking you probably leave those squares open. And maybe you just take safety yourself. You know, something like this. Where, sure, Akiyama has the plus, but you combo stuff back very nicely and win. So I think Akiyama has to be careful here. Yeah, this is his only tie here. Shame we don't have any useful captures, yeah. Oh, actually, that's kind of tricky. because they're going to plus wall here and anything we put in 5 combos. So we in fact have to do it this way. Oh, that's scary to go into. Is that what happened? No, Piggy did not go in 9. Piggy took the combo in 5 because Akiyama doesn't have anything good for 1. Akiyama still has to occupy 1 or Piggy will. So he can combo back a bit, and then at the end, we get a tie. Huh. Interesting game. Yeah. This position, very complicated, because Piggy has all the favorable synergy in 1 and 5, but in so many lines, Akiyama has kind of, it lines up well outside of that, as we saw in the lines when we looked at 1, right? Where something like this loses because the 3-6-3-8 dominates. Or, what was the other line? This loses because the 7-6-1-6 dominates. So these 5s ended up being really vulnerable in all directions. And here, Piggy found this way to tie. I think this was another way to tie, but again, gets really complicated when you have to, surrender a huge combo on last turn, right? Because we're getting this plus on the cards in 2 and 8, which is flipping 1 and then also 6, and having to calculate that out. Tricky stuff. So they tie the tiebreaker, and they move on to what for their match is a game 4, but it'll be the 3rd game we look at. Give me a moment while I put in the hands, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's probably not a big spoiler to say Piggy at some point is going to win this matchup, otherwise why am I showing it? But it will be interesting to see how and when. Akiyama and Piggy were my 2 players competing for November Player of the Month. It was 2 just incredibly impressive months, one from each of them. Both of them kind of dropped off in December and January, and both of them have come roaring back in February. So Akiyama again is first turn. Now, I've talked a bunch in prior videos that I think Piggy is just a phenomenal first turn player. And it is interesting to see him handle second turn, where I think he is also very good, but I do think his strengths lean more into first turn success. So it's nice to see him performing well in a match where he is all second turns. Now this is a tough hand, it looks like, to start with for Akiyama. He has a lot of power up and some power to the right. Less power left, though given actually Piggy has a huge right weakness. No, this is... Yeah, Piggy has a huge right weakness. Akiyama has kind of a down weakness. Weird hands. Now the kind of obvious starter is covered. As is kind of the second obvious starter. How about the third obvious kind of starter? Piggy can take it one way, but you have easy safety on the recaptures. You're really happy for the game to be going right. Akiyama does start 8-1, 7-7, and 3. So, very logical move. This is not a fun move to play against. Sometimes you just go, do I have a setup in 5? But let's say you do this, saying, I already have 6, let's give myself the same card in 2. And you're like, yes, I did it. Now I have attacks on both squares, they'll go somewhere over here, we'll get to play a game. But they're not going to go somewhere over there. They're going to say, I take safety. And you go, okay, well, I do my capture, I'm so proud of, I have this capture. And they go, okay, now I have more safety. And you go, shoot, it's 5-5, I have to put a card in the board, all their cards are safe, I have nowhere I can put safe cards. And you go, okay. So you go here thinking if they take this, I can combo back. And then they go here and you lose. And it's just very easy for that kind of game to happen, right? With meeting a corner starter with a center play when you are not directionally balanced often just gives them really quick safety by forcing the action. This is a similar concept as the center attack, though from a different order. But I think a move like this would be bad. I think after this, you're in a really tough situation. Yeah, the solver says there's one move that ties, and it is here. And, like, if you can find that, great for you, but I'm not going to. This is just going to be a position I lose in practice. So I think a move like 5 is just generally... I talk a lot about the danger there, but I think this is a good example of how you really got to be careful on those, especially when you have directional issues. Piggy does not go in 5. Piggy says, you can create an issue for me, but I'm going to create something that is also challenging for you. Go 6, 5, 6, 5, and 7. This cannot be taken from above, and if it is taken from the left, Piggy will have play. For instance, if it's taken here, Piggy just locked in 2 cards at once, right? And if it's taken here, Piggy probably is a pretty happy choice between that same move in 9 or maybe something in 4, right? So he's saying, you're not threatening this. But we still have to have a reaction if Akiyama builds out from around his. But I think maybe we have a good one. Because one important thing is, well, I think Akiyama, the natural thing to do is play in 6 here, right? Fully blocking your card. And the argument will be Piggy doesn't have safety in 9 because 8128 is covered by 4747. And 4775, 4775 is covered by 8831, which will have an 8 facing up. So I think the natural thing for Akiyama to do is block 6 in such a way that your 8831, Piggy has no combo on it in 5. Now the thing is, Piggy's hand is terrible going right, and because an 8 is the highest number facing up, and Piggy doesn't have an 8 down, any number facing left will be lower than this 8 facing up, right? Which means Piggy just can't have a combo there because he would need a higher number facing right than down, and he just doesn't have that. So it looks to me like Akiyama can play in 6, and can play in 6, and Piggy will, again, have to be careful. We've seen in this match, first turn is a pretty decent advantage. And it often means you get to direct the game. Now, one interesting thing, because I just checked with the solver, is there actually is a way for Akiyama to lose in 6. But this, I believe, because... no, you didn't give out coverage of 8. So I wonder what the win is here. This is supposedly losing. So the first squared check is 9, right? Is there safety in 9? But it doesn't look like there's good safety in 9. The second squared check is like last game, check an 8, and see if you can pair the squares interestingly. So is there a way to do so? This needs a 5 up. This needs a 5 up. This needs a 4 up. So maybe here. This needs a 6 up. Ooh, that's a nicer pairing, right? Because this pairing is awkward because 7364 is potentially vulnerable to combos back. Specifically, like, if something like this happens, right? Gets hit with a combo at the end. Stuff like that's pretty scary. But the 8128 is a much better comboer. So this looks appealing. Is that it? Hey, that is the winning move. Cool. Alright, so it is possible to lose in 6, but my instinct here would be to go in 6. Akiyama does not. Akiyama goes in 1. Huh. Now, Akiyama, in my interview with him, talked about how he likes defending what he called the L. Now, I don't call it the L, but he likes defending these positions where you have the 3 corners set up like we have here, and second turn can play in either 2 or 4, potentially safely with something high facing out. But what's interesting here is Piggy is nothing he can have with high facing out from 4, and he is, he can have a 7 facing out from 2, but that's potentially vulnerable as well. Though that seems more appealing to me, because Akiyama likely is going to have to block one of these squares before he attacks it, and the 8831 is maybe not a great attacker, because A, potentially comboed here, but B, if Piggy has gone in 4, it's never going to attack the thing in 4. Alright, where's Piggy go? Piggy goes in 9. I guess just maximum synergy, pointing out if you combo, I combo back, one way or another. In fact, every card in the hand does so. And you don't have a capture in 6. Now, I'm always a little skeptical of the 4 corners. I find the 4 corners pretty scary to go into. And my main reason for that, my main discomfort, is I talk a lot about the always captures game. And if you imagine this as an always capture game, just pretend anyone could take at any opportunity they want to, right? If Akiyama goes here, and Piggy needs to lock in a card, that's going to be the best move. Piggy locks in a card. Obviously, these moves are bad in our actual game. I'm just using cards that will hopefully be good examples. And Akiyama goes 5. Piggy can take 2 cards from either square, and Akiyama can take 3 and reply in the always takes game. Of course, this didn't flip 3 because it isn't the always takes game. But in an always takes game, a move in 8 here would be a forced win. And a move in 5 setting up the X is also a forced win. So I think in the always captures game, this is the only position after 4 moves where second turn hasn't done anything just obviously insane, and everything first turn can do is actually winning. It's not possible for first turn to make a mistake here in the always captures game. And now, of course, we don't play the always captures game. We play a game that has combo, and they don't always have the captures. But what I sort of have concluded from that is it's a structure where your opponent is likely to have a bunch of decent options, and some of them are going to work. I think it's very difficult for this kind of position to be winning for second turn, and it's quite easy for it to be losing. And this might actually be a formation that Piggy goes into more than he should, because if you watched his match with Sir Smokes, which I also put up on my channel, that was mostly from Sir Smokes' point of view, because he mentioned he thought it was an interesting match and he'd like to see a look at it, so I took a look. Piggy in multiple games repeated this formation. They had the same hands, so it was the same position. And Sir Smokes tried a couple different ways to attack it. And Piggy held all those games, but actually Sir Smokes did have a winning option. So seeing this again here, I wonder if Piggy plays this formation more than he should. Man, I'm doing a bad job of being celebratory of Piggy's skills. So let's talk for a little bit just about how good the Piggyman is at Triple Triad. Now, I was keeping track for a while. I stopped keeping track because it took a lot of effort. I had to input all the games. But I was taking people's playing stats through kind of mid-December and just looking at, of 2021, from kind of September through mid-December, and taking their numbers at different things. For instance, one thing was chance creation. Now, different people have different size samples and have played different level of opposition. These numbers are not gospel. But chance creation was, what percentage of open random games did you play? I was just looking at open random games. Did you at some point achieve a winning position? Did you create a chance where if you played perfectly from there, you would win the game? Piggyman, it has him at 58.3%, which is higher than Delial or myself. It's higher than Turds. We're all in the low mid-50s. It's also a little higher than Chickeny, who's in the mid-50s. Comfortably higher than Akiyama was then. And most players are clearly lower. The only players who this has as creating higher chances are just people I have really small samples of. So Piggyman, absolutely the highest chance creation, was achieving the highest rate of winning positions in the time I took these stats of anyone with a decent number of games played. And that's just remarkable. Let's look through some other stats of his. His conversion rate, low. We've talked about this with Piggy before. Fantastic at creating opportunity, converts them at a lower rate. Though his actual conversion rather than his did he play perfectly is better, but generally speaking, fantastic at building advantages, less consistent at converting them. But a lot of these numbers were from October. And October, I had him as an honorable mention on my Player of the Month list, saying if he upped his conversion rates, he would easily make the list. And the next month, He converted a lot more. He still got great positions, outplayed people in the early game, got really large advantages, and started converting them, and just basically won everything he played in all of November, I think it was. So these conversion rates, the numbers are low, and I think overall he has relatively low conversion. Again, calculation being the one potential weakness, but probably better than this looks. His invincibility, which is percentage of games where he was never lost, is, of the people I have on record, basically Piggy and I are neck and neck and pretty comfortably in the lead over the field for the least often lost. Again, Piggy gets large early advantages usually. But something we're seeing in this matchup is, I think, Akiyama has been getting the early advantages. Akiyama's been playing nice early positions, and Piggy's been under some pressure, but we haven't seen him fold, right? It's like he's often getting big advantages, but it's not like if he doesn't get the advantage, it's all over. He's been doing really nicely in these games. What other stats do I have on Piggy? His survival rate when he's lost is fairly low. If he does get a bad position, but this is tiny samples, so let's ignore that one. His non-blunder rate is neck and neck for highest of anyone, actually a tiny bit higher than mine, meaning he just makes losing moves so infrequently, right? So we have someone who is fantastic at getting early advantages when he has an advantage, or when the position is kind of neutral, or when he's even has difficult positions, is just so rarely making mistakes bad enough to lose, right? He might give some ground, but he's probably not losing. The main ground he gives up is missing wins. It's not losing games, which makes him a huge threat in knockout tournaments, right? And we saw him win the SPID reunion tournament, and he's just very hard to knock out in a format where you actually have to beat him, right? And I would, in general, expect him to do better in knockout formats than in league formats, right? In a league format, you might have to rack up wins, and he certainly wins games. But the thing I think he is best at is getting favorable positions and then never losing them. What else do we have? Opening pressure, I had him rated as the best opening player on the site, with clearly higher opening pressure than, myself, Delial, a bunch of others. I had mentioned myself and Delial both because those are impressive people to be ahead of, but also because we had very high opening pressure rates, and Piggy's is even higher. And he also has, when he makes a mistake, when he misses a win or misses a tie, he has the highest rate of those being missed wins rather than missed ties. He's just very rarely missing the opportunity to tie. Just really hard to beat. His mistakes tend to happen a little later in the game than some other players. Phenomenal early game player. Very good later game player. But again, if there is a weakness here, it's calculation. Overall, really high win rate. Even higher win-to-loss ratio. Because if you basically don't lose, but sometimes you miss wins, you get more ties, but you get very few losses and you still get a bunch of wins. So fantastic win-to-loss ratio. Also, one of the players, actually, of players with a decent sample, he's the player I checked who had the largest difference between first turn and second turn performance in favor of his first turn scoring. No one else is even close to him that's played a decent number of games. Scythe is close, which is interesting, but Scythe, not many games on sample. And yeah, no one close to him in this kind of gap, which is, again, not to say he's a bad second turn player, and as we're seeing here, he's playing second turn well, but phenomenal first turn. But a lot of his mistakes have come on second turn. Specifically, moves 4 and 6 have tended to be the places where large majorities of his errors have come. So overall, fantastic at creating. Oh, so then I forgot I had done this. I took the kind of chance creation, conversion, invincibility, and survival numbers and adjusted them for strength of opposition. So if you play Deli every time, you're expected to concede the numbers Deli normally scores against people. So you're expected to do really poorly, right? So this is adjusted for opposition, and compared to the average, Piggy creates chances in like 20% more games than the average player would. And that's the highest number I have. Once you adjust for opposition, not only was he ahead without adjusting for opposition, but once we do adjust for opposition, Piggy is creating chances from random games at a higher rate than anyone. His conversion, looks a little better here, slightly below average, but not way below, just a touch. His invincibility, way above average, even more so than his chance creation, though this one he's not number one, he's number two at. But, number one at creating chances, number two at avoiding lost positions, right? That's a great combination. A little above average at surviving lost positions once we adjust for opposition, a little below average at converting, but just such a fantastic feel for the game. And given that Akiyama, immediately after this match against Piggy, won probably the most impressive chat tournament win we've had, this is a very impressive person Piggy's about to beat. So this is to say, I felt I wasn't celebrating Piggy's great play enough, and hopefully bombing you with obnoxious stats will help remedy that. Let's continue the game, though. Akiyama goes in 5. All right. So there are a lot of squares that are partially useful to Akiyama, right? 7256 has a double capture in 6. It has a triple capture in 4. And it has a double capture in 8. So 7256 is only dead in 2. 4647 has a double capture in 2, is dead in 6, is kind of dead in 4, and is a triple capture in 8. So 4, 6, and 8 are the squares where both cards, 7256 is dead in 2. So 2 is a square where a card is dead, and 4647 could potentially be dead in 4 or 6. So if you're Piggy here, I think you do not want to go 8, right? Just kind of on general principles. My instinct would be, you do want to go 8. Sorry, my brain is so befuddled right now, right? Because you want to leave open as many squares as possible that Akiyama is dead in. And so occupying 8 is a square both Akiyama's cards are good, so we want to get rid of it. Also, it creates safety in 9. So I bet Piggy is going to go in 8. Sorry, I mumbled saying that so much. Yeah, Piggy does go in 8. And this looks really good. This looks really good because Akiyama's one remaining really good square is here. But I don't think he can get away with that because the 4647 is too dead. I think Piggy's winning. If you leave 7256 for these two squares, you start here. The problem is, 7256 is dead in 2, right? So you need to leave 7256 these two squares, but that just loses, right? And the 4647 you'd want to leave here, and it doesn't want to go in either of these two. Yeah. Really nice pairing by Piggy. This X doesn't work. So how does the game end? 4, 6, 4, 7, and 6. 7, 3, 6, 4, and 4. And Piggy wins 7-3. And Piggy advances to the semifinals. That may get coverage at a later time. Looking at this starting position, if you're going to tell me against an absolutely elite player, Piggy is going to win this position on second turn, that is a big ask. So maybe I was too down on 8, 1, 2, 8, and 9. Let's see if Akiyama had better options against that. So how did this game go? He went here, and Piggy went in 9. So Akiyama had 3 ways to tie. And they were all in 8 or 6. That's tricky. So I think this one is playable. Is possible to find, right? But I think it's really somewhat difficult to find. This is hard to find, right? That just kind of looks silly. Your brain doesn't look there. But this is hard to find too. Weirdly, this doesn't tie, but the other two do. Why would you need to hold on to 7256? What's the winning line? Let's be told it, right? So if we compare, this position wouldn't be lost Because you need the capture in 4, right? You don't want to give up the capture in 4. All right, so it makes sense to hold on to this card. Yeah, that is logical. But this is hard to find because you're effectively locking in their card. Yeah, this is a tough position to save. I see why a player this good did lose this position. And so I was way too negative on the 4 corners here. This was really good pressure, actually. And kind of remarkable given just how garbage this hand looked. I wonder if this would have been a good try, just going for this immediately. But I think probably no, right? There's just like something here, and this is really unpleasant to defend. Yeah. Okay. So, great play by Piggy. Always nice to see him performing great on randoms on second turn. My numbers suggest he's weaker there, but my numbers may not just have not caught up with reality. It is entirely possible for them to be wrong. Piggy's a really remarkably strong player. He's not playing that actively, but I think we should feel happy with every time we see him play. I know he has a reputation as a great hand maker, but I also think his ability to handle different randoms, all the numbers I said are from randoms, is just fantastic. Really good all-around player. A very strong player recently said to me that they thought there was just a clear top 4 on the site, and they thought they could be put in any order, and Piggy was comfortably in that top 4. So, yeah. I feel bad because I feel like I didn't have my normal energy or enthusiasm, and my brain wasn't quite connected so much. So hopefully this was a good video. Apologies to Pigs if it wasn't, because I really want these videos to be good celebrations. And I'm sure we'll cover him again soon.